Just 5 days left to go until the Bitcoin halving, and the big focus of today's video is what to expect coming into the Bitcoin halving, and even on the day as well. And other than that, I want to welcome you back to the Krown Crypto channel. We can just jump right on this one, starting off with the chart of the day, which is the Bitcoin halving chart. So I want to be going through each and every past halving here and just, well, analysizing what actually happened. So this is the first one right here in November of 2012. As you can see, Bitcoin was, in kind of a consolidationary-ish period for the couple months leading up into it. Once the halving happened, low was in, and upwards and onwards, Bitcoin went, as you can see. That is to say that after the halving, Bitcoin never went lower ever again, and essentially all this price action over here was just one major massive opportunity. Of course, if we go to the halving after that in 2016, let's go all the way over here to this next green vertical bar. You can see that the halving happened during, again, another consolidationary-ish period, and the low was not in on the halving. It was in about 3.5 weeks after the halving. This was, I believe, 24 days. Let me just make double sure. Yeah, 24 days from the halving to the next major low. In that case, again, was a major opportunity in less than a month, and Bitcoin never traded below that price ever again, ever for the history up until now. Moving on to the most recent and last halving, we can see right in over here in May of 2020, again, halving happens, and the low was in on the halving date. From that point forwards, Bitcoin never went lower ever again. So what can we deduce from this information, understanding that Bitcoin is about to undergo another halving event in just about 5 days on April 20th? Couldn't be more perfect than that on 4/20, hopefully at 69 minutes past midnight. Well, in this case, I would say that based off the prior halvings, we are unlikely to see the low before the halving date actually happens. In one case, we did see it happen a little bit after, but at minimum, patience is very likely going to be rewarded by waiting at least until the actual halving date. Now, I know that a lot of people are very excited because I think China is coming out with their own Bitcoin ETFs potentially today. Who knows what happens with that? As always, China's a major wild card. You never really know what the hell they're going to do. If they say they're going to do something, that they don't actually do it, and then who knows where it ends up. But ultimately, that would be probably a positive development for the long term for Bitcoin. But in this case, that would, play kind of hand in hand with the idea that we were espousing over the past couple of days here, that Bitcoin likely to bounce in the short term. But putting these puzzle pieces together, it does likely suggest that we probably haven't seen the low, or it's not necessarily the low. It's just there's going to be another chance at a low, most likely, on halving, or maybe slightly after halving. Going into this chart over here, we can look at the daily statistics for Bitcoin. And as you can see, Monday is more or less a coin toss right here at just over 52% of all Mondays, measuring from the beginning of 2023, the beginning of this bull market cycle to current date, have closed positively. But what is interesting about Monday is that it is the highest positive return day for Bitcoin by a pretty large margin, actually. So 2.71% on the gaining side, on the bullish side. Stop fucking messaging with me on Discord. I'm busy right now. Can't you see? Anyways, what does that imply? We're probably going to see this bounce continue a little bit more today. I mean, more likely to, I suppose. 2.71% to the upside will put Bitcoin potentially where? Somewhere around 67,500. If you recall it towards yesterday's video, it still doesn't really do anything for Bitcoin in the long term, but would imply that Bitcoin continues to bounce in the short term, which, is better than going down, obviously. And of course, on the negative side, if we were to see that, because again, 52% is like, not 100%, obviously. I mean, it's just barely better than a coin toss. Does lose an average of 1.69%. So where would that kind of put Bitcoin in the short term? Actually, it's kind of already around the low of today. But that would be 64,600-ish, let's say, or 500-ish, somewhere around there. So, has Bitcoin already seen the low of the day? And we probably do see this bounce continue upwards and onwards. Yeah, and I do think that that's still, obviously bodes better for the Bitcoin bull loss here than not, kind of putting these puzzle pieces together. But the big piece is upcoming on the weekly HPDR bands. But before we get into that, should go back to the daily HPDR bands again. we were looking at yesterday and the day prior as catching the low of the 78.6 level right here, likely to be get a bounce in the short term. Still think that this one does have some room to bounce, not just one based off of the daily statistics as we just looked at, but also you can see right here the 61.8 level, which typically going to test that region after a bounce like this, at least is where 67,500. Also in alignment with the daily statistics that we just saw over here. So a couple of different areas of collusion. No. What's the word that I'm looking for? Collaboration. Also no. Confluence is the word that I'm looking for fuck's sake. Anyways, as long as Bitcoin is trading below the 618 level, it is still pressured down overall. But in the short term, that's potentially a $2,000 bounce. For the love of God, stop messaging me. Jesus Christ. Let me, I'll make sure you, damn it, I don't have it on the screen. All right, well, whatever. It's going to shut off Discord, but suppose we'll have to wait for that. Okay, so now the big one, the weekly time frame. Yesterday, we had a big focus on the weekly time frame for the HPDR bands for the people who actually stayed in around the end of that video. Do want to massively thank you. And by the way, if you find this content valuable or entertaining or for whatever reason, please do consider subscribing, blah, 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 blah. Good old YouTube bullshit right there. But we can see right here on the weekly, Bitcoin did close below the 50% level, or sorry, the 38.2 level, which does indicate a weekly correction incoming, at least to the HPDR median. However, with the way that this weekly opened up, the median has bounced all the way up from $56,000 to $68,400. So there's a lot of interpretations to be made from this. One, have we already seen the test to the median? Yeah, I mean, obviously, Bitcoin is below the median as of right now. So that condition is going to be fulfilled, meaning that if Bitcoin is indeed bullish and the halving produces, the low or around the low, we would expect this week to pop back up and close above the median, again, 68,400. If that happens, it's game on to the upside. This market cycle is, in my opinion, going to be very, very short-lived. I don't think it lives past 2024. But you're going to see things just continue onwards and forwards from here. However, by the same token, while Bitcoin does likely bounce up and probably test somewhere around this median, again, 68,400, which is kind of around the bounce target for today, or today, tomorrow-ish, let's say, again, 67,500, that's $1,000 right there. That would be kind of the balancing point for this week, meaning that as long as Bitcoin is below, pressure down, still potential for corrections lower, as we'll go over a little bit later. The 38.2 level would be the area to be mindful of, and where is that currently positioned at? 59,300. So what can we make from that? Well, if Bitcoin were to reject from the median and come back down to the 38.2 level, again, 59,300, very likely that is a major opportunity. Holy shit, I just need to stop damn Discord. This is just pissing me off. For fuck's sake. It's like you tell people you're busy and they just continue to inundate you with more and more messages. All right, just 1 second over here. Apologies about this, but my autistic rage cannot coexist with these absolutely fucking annoying noises in the background. All right, so yes. So that's kind of what it implies right there. If Bitcoin gets another drop off on the halving, or maybe slightly after the halving, this would be the area of interest to be looking for. I would go as far to say that, and again, how far in this? Okay, we're 8 minutes in this video. All right, you've made it this far. I go as far to say that if Bitcoin does drop below the 59,300-ish region right here, and you see a closure below that region on a higher term time frame, especially like the weekly, you're probably going to see this market cycle actually go on longer, but there's going to be a major correction over the next, 2 to 3 months where Bitcoin trades sideways. So this is actually very, 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 very important, I do believe, for this upcoming week, because we kind of would expect if there is going to be a move somewhere around here that it happens relatively soon, probably within this next week or two. But ultimately, as long as the 38.2 level holds, $59,000 basically, yeah. Upside more likely. This is the next sort of lowish region right here. Can Bitcoin retest this region? Sure. I think it's actually in some cases kind of likely, as we'll go over a little bit later. But if, on the other hand, Bitcoin were to pop back up and especially close above the median this week at 68,420, by the way, then it's probably game on to the upside more immediately. You'll see this you'll basically see the low like on the halving, or it's just basically like more than likely to just continue upwards and onwards, and buying within this region is more or less fine. Again, in my personal opinion, as I've been stating for the past couple weeks now, or 3 weeks now, this area right here is all a value area. If you are thinking more long term, again, in alignment with the Bitcoin production cost fundamentals chart, which is currently at $30,000 for basement price for Bitcoin, which is about to double in 5 days, making it at $60,000. And realistically, as you can see, Bitcoin, has traded below the basement price, but for a very, very short amount of time, and those were all phenomenal buys. So anywhere around $60,000 is, in my opinion, very, very good long-term for Bitcoin, at least based off of this. So going back into it over here, big focus on this chart at the end of the week, bouncing point 68,400. Short-term should bounce back up, as we said yesterday in the day prior. Bitcoin, in a short-term bouncy-ish territory. But anything below that number especially is a lower high, and we likely do see another try probably below $60,000, and that's probably going to be the next major opportunity relatively soon, within this month, I would guess. So that's kind of how I'm putting the puzzle piece together as of right now. All right, let me get my notes back up over here. Okay, we got that. Yes, very nice. Okay, sweet. All right, so also what I would say still in the short term, it's probably more corrective than not, is that stochastic momentum on all of the higher term timeframes continues to remain to the remain to the downside. Even with another red dot over here, the red dot of death, or it's just DMI cross really. But 71,400 is going to be the pivot on the daily, meaning that there is downside pressure as long as Bitcoin is below that pivot. Obviously, if Bitcoin were to pop back above 68,400, I think that would be a pretty strong signal in and of itself. But just for more clarity on the higher term timeframes, the 2-day time frame also showing pretty heavy downside momentum as long as Bitcoin's below 71,900, so an even higher number than the daily. And the 5-day is going to be also showing downside momentum below 73,200, so we climbing up even higher there. And then the weekly, same shit. So again, Bitcoin, in my opinion, is still more corrective here after a short-term bounce. The short-term bounce, if Bitcoin, comes back down maybe towards very low or even low 60,000 or upper 50s, I think is going to be the next major opportunity. If you start to see below 59, that's where this market cycle starts to take on a different twist and turn, I suppose. In that case, I'd probably be looking down towards very low 50s, probably $53-ish thousand price per Bitcoin. I'd probably be looking for a multi-month long correction, which will likely lead towards a longer market cycle, ultimately, which, may or may not be good. I don't know your opinion on that. I think let's just fucking do it right now, baby. I'm ready, baby. I'm fucking ready. So anyways, that's all preference at the end of the day. Big focus on this right and over here. Again, I would say as long as those higher term timeframes stochastic momentum is angled to the downside, there's more risk to the downside in the short term. And while Bitcoin can very easily pop back up and test 67.5 or 68.4, still perhaps doing something like this around the actual halving date or slightly after the halving date is likely is likely the next real opportunity. And I think that'd also be quite scary for a lot of people as well, because you do see a lot of people really triumphantly claiming that the low is already in for this move. I'm not convinced just yet, especially as long as Bitcoin's below 68.4. So yeah, it is what it is at the end of the day. I suppose that this week will shed a lot of light on what's actually happening as far as the greater picture does go. But the main message on this channel has been very much unchanged for the past three, maybe even 4 weeks now. Low 60s, upper 50s, probably a value area long term. And what happens in the short term, I mean, is may or may not be relevant to you. I don't know. But that's a good place for me to be leaving off. As always, I would like to wish you the best. Take care. Much love. And fuck you, and see you tomorrow.